because there is there is somebody, before we start watching the Tony Morris videos, there is somebody who needs your help. Well, let me show you right now. I posted this on Twitter, but obviously I know that a lot of people just don't follow Twitter anymore. The Guardian is looking for people like you, like a lot of you. The Guardian just posted this article. Tell us, are you estranged from your parents? Have your children cut off contact with you? We're looking to speak to people who have decided to cut off contact with their parents, or people who have been cut off by their children. They are trying to. Let me share this tab instead. This is the article. I'm gonna drop the I'm gonna drop the link in the chat so you guys can go over there, and please consider signing up. Please consider supporting the Guardian. I know that a lot of you are experiencing this right now, and if you can just come out and tell the Guardian your experience, you can definitely make a difference, far more than I can make a difference with, you know, this live streams that are very unprofessional with audio issues. Now, thank you so much, everybody, for being here. We started watching last week the 20 More is Deleted videos. You can watch them in avoidjw.org. They just have this new website, this new page of videos removed from jw.org. And what do you know it? Tony Morris is in there. So we are going to watch the 6 oldest videos that were deleted from jw.org, featuring disgraced governing body member Tony Morris. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. And let's just start, because I feel like after the audio problems, you know, we should just get started, right? We're gonna put it a little bit faster.
This morning, I thought we'd talk about accepting the facts about our figurative heart and how that safeguards our relationship with Jehovah. Let's read today's text in its entirety. Jeremiah chapter 17. And what a sobering, inspired thought from our Heavenly Father. Jeremiah 17, and we'll read verse 9. The heart is more treacherous than anything else and is desperate. So there we have it. That's the truth. That's what Jehovah makes very clear to us, that each and every one of us have to deal with a treacherous or deceitful figurative heart. And how encompassing.
Now, this is a very interesting question that Diana is asking. What drinking / something else game can we come up with for Tony Morris? Every time he says, okay, that's actually a really good one. Let's say every time he says, okay, or as he says, okay, or every time he grunts, or every time he says sobering. Remember, okay, grunts, sobering, you got to take a drink. Let's do this.
Expression here, more treacherous than anything else. And what complicates it even more is it's desperate. It always wants its way. So a lot to meditate on. And now Jehovah put it here for the very reason we have to accept this fact. And to safeguard a relationship with him, we have to accept that this is the case. And
Simply Lore, obviously, is killing it in the chat. Every time he says C, definitely. We're going to add C to the drinking game. Also, Danny, my boyfriend is leaving on Monday for 2 weeks. I need your tips to survive while the partner is away. Just lots of weed. That's my only tip. Just just smoke a lot.
You could be a fine Christian for many years, mature, nice outlook, nice attitude. But if you ever find yourself forgetting Jehovah's estimation of what we have within us in our figurative heart, then we're in danger. Because the devil will always exploit the fact that our imperfect figurative hearts are treacherous, deceitful, more than anything else, and is desperate. So accepting that fact, it's not that you want to dwell on and then you start feeling, well, what a miserable person I am. Even though that is something the Apostle Paul acknowledged, it's just accepting the fact. And then
I'm not drinking, but I'll be vaping for the challenge. Listen, anything that makes you not sober, that will be good and will work for listening to Tony Morris.
We're cautious about allowing the treacherous heart to lead us astray. Now, Perhaps you haven't thought about this in a while, but notice what Jesus said, fundamental truth for all of us, here in Matthew chapter 6. And what we sometimes refer to as the model prayer, Matthew chapter 6. And a lot of spiritual food for thought. Of course, anything Jesus said is spiritual food for thought. And verse 13 of Matthew chapter 6, and do not bring us into temptation, but deliver us from the wicked one. So, been there for all these years. We could personally reflect on when's the last time we mentioned that in a prayer to our Father, Jehovah. Do not bring us into temptation, but deliver us from the wicked one, or rescue us from the wicked one. What are we really saying there? Well, we're asking our Heavenly Father to guide and help us so that we're not overreached by Satan. Very simple. But the closer we get to the end,
See, that's a drink. That's a drink. It's over in it. That's a drink.
make no mistake, it's even more urgent to keep in mind the need to beg Jehovah to not bring us into temptation, to guide us so that we'll be delivered from this wicked one who wants to exploit the fact that we have a treacherous, traitorous, figurative heart, and that can ruin our relationship with Jehovah personally. Now, the Apostle Paul recognized this, and it's quite interesting what he wrote to his beloved brothers in Thessalonians, that first letter. So if you'd find 1 Thessalonians in chapter 3.
I have to be honest, I can barely follow what he's saying because I'm so used to disassociating. And I went out yesterday with somebody who also used to be a Jehovah's Witness, and we kind of like, we talk about how like she was way better to disassociate than me, but like you just have to disassociate when you listen to this boring speeches. And honestly, like it's just hard to keep track of them during the first half when they're just reading the cherry-picked Bible verses that seemingly support like cosmetically their arguments.
On this quite revealing and tying in with the thought of accepting the facts about our figurative heart safeguards our relationship with our God and Father Jehovah. 1 Thessalonians chapter 3 and verse 5. Paul writes, "That is why, when I could bear it no longer, I sent to learn of your faithfulness." Now notice, in case somehow the tempter might have tempted you, and our labor might have turned out to be in vain. So he didn't get into any specific detail, but it helps us to appreciate that there's this danger that somehow the tempter, Satan the devil, might tempt us. And this is connected with the need to beg Jehovah to deliver us or rescue us from the wicked one in his effort to tempt us to break our integrity and our cherished relationship with Jehovah being damaged. So he knows the heart's treacherous, and whoever we are and however long we've been in the truth, remember what Paul wrote to the Thessalonians, somehow, because he's always looking to somehow lead us into breaking our integrity to Jehovah God. Now, if you think of Revelation chapter 12 and where we are in the stream of time, this occurred to me when I was preparing these thoughts here. Revelation 12, very familiar thoughts here. Devils expelled from the heavens, he and the demons. And notice the familiar verse 12, Revelation 12. "On this account be glad, you heavens," and boy, they're rejoicing, those that reside in them. And that's an exclamation. Notice though, woe for the earth and for the sea, because the devil has come down to you having great anger, knowing that he has a short period of time. Well, if that was true after he was ousted from the heavens, what do you think about now? Okay. So sober.
See, another one. I love this. This is just like a classic Jehovah's Witness twist on a Bible verse. The Bible verse is like, Satan is angry, right? And then Tony Morris is like, oh well, we know why he's angry. We obviously know why he's angry. He's angry because these are the last days, and he's about to be put in a cage while we all move through paradise. See, so gotta drink.
We want to safeguard our relationship with Jehovah because it actually, notice verse 17, same chapter. "So the dragon became enraged." Great anger is very good. Let's see, he's enraged and he's waging war with the remnant, as it brings out here, and those that observe the commandments of God. Anyone supporting the remnant, this is a war. And the war is he's out to somehow cause us to break our integrity with our precious Heavenly Father. So this helps us to appreciate, even though it was long before the thoughts here in Revelation and what Jesus taught us. In Proverbs chapter 4, it still helps us more than all else that's to be guarded. Safeguard your heart, for out of it are the sources of life. So even then, the recognition that we have to safeguard our heart and accepting the fact that our heart, our figurative heart, is treacherous, that'll safeguard our precious relationship with Jehovah God.
Again, another twist of, oh, the heart's treacherous. Therefore, what you need to do is not to let yourself guide your life by your heart, is to let us guide your life for you. Now, Arindala has a very important question. Hi, where's Lucifer? And Lucifer is at the moment right here. You get over right here. This black ball over here, that's Lucifer right now. He is asleep. He has been asleep since we started, even after all of the audio issues, which I feel is pretty disrespectful.
Now, to help us with that, notice what Paul wrote, very familiar verses in 2 Timothy chapter 3. And we've used this in the ministry many times. And yet think about it as it connects with safeguarding our hearts and accepting the fact that it's treacherous, that we won't break our integrity or allow the devil to somehow cause us to break our integrity. 2 Timothy chapter 3. And you'll notice what we're emphasizing here. The fact is in verse 16, all scripture is inspired of God, but notice the benefits. So it's for teaching, it's for reproving, setting things straight. See the point here, though? For disciplining in righteousness. So you think of that maybe on your Bible study. I use the Bible to discipline my Bible study, get God's thinking, and it's appropriate. Elders use the scriptures to discipline. However, I want to emphasize here for you, when you're doing your personal Bible reading, many of us, let the scriptures discipline that treacherous heart. See, it's a mirror. When something hits you, because maybe you've had wrong thinking, it could be all sorts of things, anything that could lead us astray and cause us to break our integrity, just face the fact. It's just between you and Jehovah. You're reading it and let it discipline you in righteousness.
I love it. Just face the fact that it's between you and Jehovah and tell the elders.
And that's what's going to enable us to protect our precious relationship with Jehovah God. So we all have to face that fact. As we mentioned, our figurative heart is treacherous. It's a traitor. But what's wonderful is we're confident Jehovah loves us. So when he made that estimation in Jeremiah, it's motivated by his love. So that helps us to protect our relationship with him, facing that fact. That's the way it is. So indeed, we accept the fact about our figurative heart, but we're determined to protect and safeguard our precious relationship with Jehovah God.
Well, that was a little bit mid, but that kind of just for anybody who is missing Tony Morris's videos, that's how they usually go. It's a Jehovah's Witness video. Now, I thought that maybe at the end of every video, I can just tell you my take on Tony Morris scandal. Let's start with the drinking. Do I believe that Tony Morris has a drinking problem? I don't think that I don't think that there is enough evidence to support that Tony Morris has a drinking problem, more than there's an evidence to support that there's a drinking problem in Bethel whatsoever. I think that Lloyd wanted to do like this big thing with I don't know, like the video that he got. And you know, he knew how clicks work, and from then on, the theory of Tony Morris being a drunkard kind of just stayed there. Like it kind of just stuck, right? That being said, I don't think that video proves that Tony Morris is a drunkard. I mean, it proves that Tony Morris was buying a whole bunch of alcohol one time. Like, yeah, you know, like I don't know, I buy a whole bunch of weed. You know, it's just it doesn't prove anything is what I'm saying. Like it's just one time, one video. So yeah, more shots at Lloyd. I love it. Look, I'm not even, I think that sometimes as ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, we can be like hypersensitive of other Jehovah's Witnesses, you know, saying criticism or whatever. But I feel like, you know, that's just my perception. Now that I'm doing content and all of that stuff, I feel like there's a, like, if I got that video, there will be a huge part of me that knows that if I call it like fucking like Bottlegate or something, and try to twist that, try to twist it into interpreting that the slurring of this old man mean, and the fact that he bought a whole bunch of alcohol means that he's an alcoholic. Like, I feel like that would get a fuck ton of clicks, and it obviously did. But it's just, I don't think, like, once you start digging into the actual proof, there's no proof though. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm not trying to dig like take shots at Lloyd or anything. I'm just saying the video that Lloyd showed and the proof that Lloyd showed just is not enough proof to conclusively prove that Tony Morris is an alcoholic. Like, we know that there's an alcohol problem in Bethel. We know that people are probably alcoholics in the governing body. But to say that he's an alcoholic and that he is right now on stage drunk, I mean, that's a little bit ridiculous, don't you guys think?
This morning, I thought we'd talk about why we love Jehovah so much. Now, obviously, there are basic fundamental reasons we love him, and let's turn to Acts chapter 18 and just mention the A part of the verse as to why we love him. And verse 28 of Acts chapter 17, for by him we have life and move and exist. So we love him because we love life. We're grateful that we're able to move and that we exist. And when you think about it, this beautiful earth that Jehovah created continues to sustain humans with the food and water. So just fundamental. We love him for all these things, but really why we love him so much, it gets much more personal than just these things that keep us in existence. When Jehovah is like a loving father to us, and when he's real, and when we feel confident he's listening to our personal private prayers, that strengthens us to continue on and to endure. Now,
wait, we saw this one last time. Hold on. Yeah, because I am. Oh, fuck. You're totally right. I'm so sorry. Yeah, this was. Thank you so much for reminding me. It's just, it's the. I got confused with the tabs. There's this one. So sorry. There you go. Let's get started.
now
Thank you so much.
Watchtower, from where the comments are taken, had the theme.
Yeah, look at the difference. Like, oh my God, he's so much younger. And also, you can tell that I feel like he slurs his words, not because he is a drunkard, but because he's old, and you can see it. Like, the younger he is, the less he slurs his words. That's just what happens to a lot of people when they get old, you know? Like, it's just, I don't feel like him slurring words automatically means that he's drunk on stage right now.
Your deliverance is getting near. Now, this was a sobering and yet very encouraging Watchtower study article. And that theme was taken from Luke chapter 21. So if you like to find that, Luke 21. And in the context prior to verse 28, we know verse 26, people will become.
Just FYI, he's a Wampa. And this, I only know because I watched the last live stream on loop a bunch of times. This is how you're supposed to watch every single one of my videos. I hope you learn from Frog Moon's example. You don't need to support me on Patreon. You don't need to do any of that. You do need to watch every single video on a loop a bunch of times, and then just also like watch it with ads, and then just let the ads play all throughout. That is just the way that you. I'm an artist, okay? That is, as an artist, that's the way that you should engage with my art.
Faint out of fear and expectation of the things coming upon the inhabited earth. And then mentions the heavens shaken, then see the Son of Man. And that's where we find the theme, verse 28. But as these things start to occur, stand up straight and lift up your heads, because your deliverance is getting near. Now, as we know, that is fulfilled during the Great Tribulation. That's something to keep in mind, that at that time, when these events take place, they'll be able to stand up and look forward to the deliverance. Now, for a moment, just reflect back on the Hezekiah video that we enjoyed during the convention season last year. It was amazing, and what a beautiful job the brothers did in audio video depicting one angel that destroyed 185,000 men. It was spectacular. However, find Revelation chapter 17. Revelation chapter 17. And this is what is foretold for the near future. The context here, Revelation 17, where verse 12 mentions the 10 horns. And then down into verse 13, after this 1 hour with the wild beast, the United Nations, and they give their authority to the wild beast. Humans in general would find that hard to believe when they look at what's going on in the world today.
I love that. I love this. Humans in general would find it hard to believe that the book of Revelation talks about like this very specific thing that happened in the United Nations in the 20th century, like at the end of the 20th century. Also, I don't know if he said sobering. Some people in chat are saying that he said sobering. I will take a drink just in case, though.
But here's what they're going to do. In verse 14, these will battle with the Lamb, but because he is Lord of Lords and King of Kings, the Lamb will conquer them. Also, those with him who are called and chosen and faithful will do so. Now, as good as our brothers are in audio video, I personally doubt anyone could do a videography and capture this event. You're talking about Christ Jesus, the 144,000 anointed, immortal spirit creatures, and then Jesus has the holy angels that are under his direction as king. This is going to be spectacular. All things are possible with God, but I think it'd have to have him to be able to show a video to capture what's coming in the future.
Guys, this is why I think that he is indoctrinated. At the end of this video, we'll talk about whether or not the governing body members are indoctrinated. But spoiler alert, this is what gives me a hint that the governing body members are indoctrinated. Because imagine the masturbatory way that you have to picture all of this stuff to be like, yeah, I know there is no way that the brothers in the audiovisual department would be able to depict this amazing thing that happened in the Bible. Like you have to not just believe in it, but also be like, man, can we even depict this in our videos, which are the spiritual food? Like, like I really feel like he and everybody else in the governing body are indoctrinated, and you can see why here. Like that this is proof.
Just spectacular. Now, just keep in mind, and the Watchtower made this clear, we don't know the sure and exact sequence of events, the time order. Some of it, as the Watchtower said, will likely overlap. However, what we do know, and Jehovah's been kind about this, is what's going to take place to start the Great Tribulation. Now, we find here in verse 15, and we'll read through 17 of Revelation 17. He said to me, the waters that you saw where the prostitute is sitting mean peoples and crowds and nations and tongues. And the 10 horns that you saw in the wild beast, these will hate the prostitute and will make her devastated and naked, and they will eat up her flesh and completely burn her with fire. Now, here's the fact.
It's very weird to think that, we grew up listening to this stuff. First of all, love it that Tony Morris is talking about an esoteric prophecy. That is my absolute favorite of Jehovah's Witnesses, and I feel it's horrible that Jehovah's Witnesses are moving away. I think Jehovah's Witnesses are the most interesting when they come up with like cool, wacky explanations for the book of Revelation. So I love that Tony Morris is doing this. But also, like, he just talked about like violently eating a woman. And we grew up like as children just listening to this and being like, yeah, no, this is fine. But also like I couldn't watch Power Rangers because it was too violent. So it's just so stupid.
And verification for why this will happen. Verse 17, for God put it into their hearts to carry out his thought. Yes, to carry out their one thought by giving their kingdom to the wild beast until the words of God will have been accomplished. So it's as good as done. This is what's going to happen, regardless of how people view us when we preach this good news, because this is good news, the destruction of the world empire, false religion, the beginning of the Great Tribulation. This is spectacular news for God's people, and until it takes place, they won't believe it. But
again, a very important thing that he just said. He just said that the destruction of, like, they're basically preaching for the destruction of religion and the destruction of government, and those are good news. But those are good news to Jehovah's Witnesses. Jehovah's Witnesses love being like in front of the newspapers and all of that stuff, being like, oh, we love the good news. We just want to preach the good news all over, because everybody has just had bad news. The bad news about Palestine or whatever. And the good news is that won't matter, because literally everybody will be dead if they don't follow our cult, like including religion, including governments. Like the good news is our only good news when it comes to Jehovah's Witnesses. But to outsiders, they always pretend that the good news are just good news for everybody, which is very stupid, and it's far more hypocritical than him buying bottles of whiskey.
It will happen because Jehovah says it's going to happen. So that'll be a time for us to prove our love for Jehovah God. We'll be the only group protected by him. Now, this was profound too. This article in the Watchtower made this, I thought, was a profound statement when you think about the organization we're part of. It said in paragraph 9, this will not be the time to preach the good news of the kingdom. My, we're a preaching organization, so there's a time we'll not preach the good news? Yes. Remember, one of our favorite verses, it's etched on the minds and hearts of God's people, and this good news of the kingdom be preached in all the inhabited earth for a witness to all the nations. Well, don't forget the last part. And then the end will come. So during the Great Tribulation, no good news. However, we do know there'll be preaching. And you think we're unpopular now? Oh my. Notice Revelation 16.
This is interesting. This is why some people believe that Jehovah's Witnesses are getting ready to change from preaching join our religion to preaching Armageddon is coming now. You're all gonna die. You're idiots because you didn't join our religion. You're all gonna be genocided. I don't think they will actually say that. I think they will say that will happen, just as they will say that Armageddon will happen. Like it's just that will happen always in the distant, not in the distant future, but in the near future, in the near but also always unattainable future.
And in the context, Armageddon is being addressed. And notice verse 21. Then great hailstones, each about the weight of a talent, fell from heaven on the people, and the people blasphemed God because of the plague of the hail, for the plague was unusually great. Yes. So the message and the preaching is going to be like hailstones. I don't know if you've ever been in a hailstone, but this is a huge hailstone being depicted here, likely possibly a hard-hitting message, maybe a declaration announcing that Satan's world is about to come to a complete end. So let's just stay tuned.
Stay tuned to see if we change our message to y'all gonna die. Oh man, again, and you have to wonder, Tony Morris was one of the big people saying this. Now that Tony Morris left, or is no longer part of the government. Remember, we don't know if he got kicked out, if he left. We don't know what happened, right? But we know that he's no longer part of the governing body, and we know that these talks are deleted. So does that mean that the hailstone message of them being like, y'all gonna die because y'all not Jehovah's Witnesses, do they believe that that is no longer a thing because this speaker is no longer a part of the governing body and this speech is no longer part of jw.org? It's pretty interesting.
And don't feel bad. I know I was out in the ministry in one territory recently, and it's good to suffer reproach. And we all need that, like Jesus did. The door-to-door is good for us. But see, if you think we're suffering reproach now, well, get ready. It's just training for this.
Just want to point out, he just said the door-to-door is good for us, right? This is right before he got he was no longer part of the governing body, and then the preaching style changed. Then the Jehovah's Witnesses were like, actually, you don't have to report any hours. You just have to say whether or not you've been there, and that's it. That's the report. So again, I look, this is just, usually my videos are very well researched and all of that stuff, and I'm usually like sober at least at some point during the production of those videos. This is just a live stream, right? I'm just throwing things out there. We're just having fun, but I just wonder, would this play a part in his departure from the governing body? Because from one hand, you have this person who is seemingly very into tradition, very into what Jehovah's Witnesses are doing, very, like he just said that the door-to-door preaching is good for us. And then he is no longer part of the governing body. And then two new members come in the governing body, and then there's the change to the hourly preaching arrangement. Is there a relation between all of those, or is that just coincidence? That I'm not saying I just, I just unplugged, like I just uncovered something very profound. I'm just wondering out loud, because I'd really genuinely love to know what you think.
This future declaration that we'll have the privilege to share in. Now, keep in mind, there is this event that the Watchtower did mention in Matthew chapter 24. And if you'll find that, and it's nice to have this clear, Matthew chapter 24. And we're going to read verse 31. And he will send out his angels with a great trumpet sound, and they will gather his chosen ones together from the four winds, from one extremity of the heavens to their other extremity. So what the Watchtower stated, it's not the initial gathering of the anointed or the final sealing. This is when the remnant, the remaining ones, receive their heavenly reward during the Great Tribulation. And this event takes place at some point after the beginning of the attack of Gog. Now, at that time, that's when Matthew 13:43 is fulfilled. The righteous ones will shine as brightly as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. So, as we mentioned, sobering, yes, but
Sobering. We need to drink. Also, Queen of Flatulence has been a member for 1 month. Happy birthday. Like, we are ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, so therefore we take any opportunity to celebrate a birthday, even if it's not technically a birthday. This is your birthday. Happy birthday.
encouraging. Oh, yes, so encouraging. So, brothers, let's be confident. Let's trust in Jehovah. There's no need to be afraid. Let's keep up our spiritual routine and prove ourselves ready, because the Great Tribulation is near.
This is very like classic Jehovah's Witness style, like of preaching. I feel like this is the kind of preaching that Jehovah's Witness. I mean, not the kind of preaching, but the kind of talk that Jehovah's Witnesses no longer get. This it's not just like fear mongering and all that stuff, but it's also like it's based on esoteric interpretations of the Bible that he's very outright on saying it. And right now, Jehovah's Witnesses kind of just allude to those esoteric prophecies, but they don't really dive deep into what those prophecies mean. Like Tony just dove into it just now. Now, just for the sake of completion, do governing body members believe that they are in the truth, or do they know that it's all a grift? I believe that governing body members all believe in it, because I mean, it's like if everybody has been telling you, right, all of the time, that if you pray to God, you're gonna win the lottery, right? These are like this 9 guys, the people in the governing body members, like the governing body members. Those are like the 9 guys that actually won the lottery. So they think that, I won the lottery, therefore if you pray to God, then you'll win the lottery, right? Like, I think it's the same thing. So I feel like there would be absolutely no reason to doubt the religion when you're part of the governing body, because everything got confirmed to you. Like, you kind of went all the way up. You got all the way up to this organization, and this is the only governing. I mean, the only people for which the cult is actually working for.
Discuss the matter of a proper view of discipline keeps us close to Jehovah. Now, in the context of today's text about Jehovah correcting to the proper degree He's talking to his people about being brought back to their land. He was not going to exterminate them nor leave them. And it helps us to appreciate that he wanted them to keep their relationship with him. Now, today we receive discipline in various ways. It might be from personal Bible study. And I was excited this morning. I don't know when it happened, maybe last night, but to see we have in the JW library, we can put our personal notes and got started with some already. So that'll be like thoughts, discipline from Jehovah that is just between him and ourselves. Very beneficial. The wise way to go when it comes to discipline keeps us from veering off in our relationship with him. It might be something we read in the publication, might hear a talk at a meeting, at an assembly or a convention, something in a JW broadcast, various ways, any numbers of ways Jehovah will discipline us. And
what a dumb way of a God to discipline you through a speech in the platform. Like, obviously, this isn't what he means. What he means is that sometimes you will do things that the religion has come to believe that are wrong and should never be done, right? And you will do those things, and then you will hear about it, about how you're not supposed to do it in the platform, and then you feel guilty. Like, maybe you watched a little bit of porn, right? And you hear from the platform, oh, that's just committing adultery in our eyes or whatever, and then you feel guilty about it. That's it. It's not Jehovah disciplining you. Is just this religion repressing you.
We need to remember he does it so that we remain close to him. The problem is discipline is not easy to take. It requires humility. And the proper view of discipline is found here in Proverbs chapter 3. And this gives us the scriptural basis to have this proper view of discipline that'll keep us close to Jehovah God. Now notice verse 11 and 12 of Proverbs chapter 3. My son, do not reject the discipline of Jehovah, and do not loathe his reproof. For those whom Jehovah loves, he reproves, just as a father does a son in whom he delights. So how might we reject the discipline of Jehovah? Well, put yourself in a position, you're being counseled. It's come to the point where overseers, elders have had to sit down with you. Now, some, as soon as the counsel begins to flow, there's this quickness to be upset, to justify.
Now, when I start telling people that I know better and that they should change their lives based on what I think they should do, some of them tend to get upset. The jerks.
To feel picked on. Well, Jehovah's saying, don't reject this. And if they're using the scriptures and thoughts from publications, view it as coming from Jehovah.
This, again, if it comes from the publications, view it as coming from Jehovah. That is a very important thing that a lot of people who are outside a cult don't realize, that you have to see everything that this cult says, everything that Tony Morris says, as coming from Jehovah. Because, it's in the publications, therefore it's coming from Jehovah. It's a very pernicious thing that I feel Tony Morris used to say a lot out loud, but I feel like Jehovah's Witnesses have become like far more covert in recent years. They don't really say it like that. Exactly. View it as coming from Jehovah is their excuse to why you need to change your life according to their human views,
so that we can stay close to him. Now, give you an idea of sometimes reading something that will bring us close to Jehovah, especially if we veered off and didn't even realize it. I'm going to go way back to some examples of Jehovah's sheep reading something in the watchtower, and it just disciplined them so that they could get close to Jehovah. And it goes way back to 1982 and had to do with TV serials or soap operas. And someone said, well, that's a long time ago. Well, the fact is nothing's changed. Some of these soap operas are still on that had the names that they had in 1982. They still have it. So many readers personally benefited from the counsel. The counsel still applies that was found there, but I think it's very touching and commendable for the ones that read that they recognized that it impacted their relationship with Jehovah and they wanted to get close to him. Now, the cover on the watchtower was soap operas, Can They Corrupt the Heart? And in the opening article, we did say millions of women and men of all ages, races, and backgrounds will rarely miss a show. Well, now you can record them and have them anytime that they like. It's still an ongoing problem and an issue for a true Christian, a worshiper of Jehovah, to make sure we're not being corrupted by soap operas, TV serials.
Guys, it's just, come on. Like, I feel like this is why I miss Tony Morris, because Tony Morris is the only one who said this kind of shit. Like, we as Jehovah's Witnesses have to avoid being corrupted by soap operas. Like, what the actual cult is this? Like, it's just it's just hilarious. It's kind of hilarious. Tony was upset because he loved watching Gilding Light, but it comes out at 10 a.m. when he was always in the ministry. Yeah, exactly. He was either at the ministry or at or buying whiskey, apparently. Exactly, like corrupted by soap operas. Like, it's just, that's hilarious. That's hilarious, guys. It's just I'm gonna say it. Fuck it. I'm gonna say it. I miss Tony. I said it. I miss Tony.
Now, after the articles came out, we had some write in to explain what happened to him. And so months later, after this 1982 issue of the Watchtower, and that was December 1st, we went to 83 Watchtower, December 1st. And here's the response from some of the readers. And I found it very commendable. And I think you'll appreciate the humility, because it takes humility to accept and have the proper view of discipline. So one of the dangers that the brothers were warned about is that you get emotionally attached to the characters in the show. So here's what one wrote. I had grown up watching this one soap opera, and the character Julie was just like my friend. One day, Julie had an accident that left her beautiful face badly scarred. I was in front of the TV.
I would absolutely love to know what soap opera this is. Please look for this soap opera. We will watch it on stream. Let's what it's this soap opera where a woman gets her face disfigured because a car accident. That sounds like all of the soap operas, honestly, but maybe we'll get more details.
TV set every day to make sure she was going to pull through. That night, as I was saying my prayers, before I even thought what I was saying, I prayed, and Jehovah, please bless Julie. Well, she admits I was shocked. She should have been.
No, she shouldn't have been. I mean, you're supposed to relate to the characters, and then your way of helping people is by praying. So yeah, maybe you got like so into the fantasy that you forgot, oh wait a second, my imaginary friend from the soap opera is not the same as my imaginary friend that I pray to, that I call Jehovah. Like, you just mix your imaginary worlds. That's it.
Plead to,
because they're both imaginary, by the way. Like, that's why they're so easy to mix.
Jehovah for Julie had come from my heart. Realizing how involved she had become, she stopped watching these programs. She wrote, if all readers will take your article on TV serials to heart, they will feel a real sense of freedom, since our own everyday problems are enough to cope with.
Guys, I mean, imagine really getting into Breaking Bad and then really caring what happens and being like, nope, not gonna watch because I am not allowed to care about what happens about fictional characters. Is that why their dramas are so dull? Because they're like, no, you don't understand. If you can relate to the characters, that is a bad way of doing it. That's how the world does it. We're gonna make it different. We're gonna make it so characters are the most boring people you have ever met in your whole lives.
So you see, our sister had the proper view of discipline, and she was able to keep close to Jehovah. Now, another one, after expressing appreciation, wrote, I realized that I was addicted to soap operas and that I had to do something about it. I wondered, too, if my relationship with Jehovah could be affected. How could I have them as friends and also be a friend to Jehovah?
Jesus Christ, this whole thing is about soap operas. Like, this whole speech is just about soap opera. God, like, see why I miss Tony Morris? Like, he got this speech about soap operas. He got the other speech about like people with tight pants. I mean, come on. Like, he was entertaining. Like, this is a cult, right? But he did culty things that were entertaining and very fun to watch at the very least. Like, do you think Gage Flegel has ever done anything that is as fun to watch as any of these videos that we've watched of Tony Morris? Of course not.
I had to quit all at once.
Gage Flegel is a real name, by the way.
It was the only way, and how hard it was, she admits. So what she had to do to break free, she had to unplug her TV. She'd go outdoors and work in the garden, call somebody, anything to stay busy so that she wouldn't go back to watching those soap operas.
Also, this is such a boomer take. Like, nobody watches proper TV anymore. Like sure, okay, she unplugged she unplugged the TV so she couldn't watch Netflix on her laptop, I guess. I guess it's just
She took time for personal Bible study. That'll keep you close to Jehovah, preparing for her meetings and other spiritual things. And then she confesses how much better I felt. It has been over 2 years now, in this last writing, since I've seen those so-called friends. I must admit that at times I still wonder what's going on with them, but I fight it. Perhaps many others who have not yet broken free will now. Jehovah and you brothers, or she says, thank you, Jehovah and you brothers, for exposing this good for nothing thing.
caring about, like, I forgot that Jehovah's Witnesses used to be like very outright against soap operas. I feel like they're no longer against soap operas, maybe because this speech is deleted. And I feel like if you start looking for a reference, I'd love to, like, don't quote me on this. I would love to do the research, but I would love to see how often they talk about soap operas today compared to before, because I feel like before they really cared about it, and now, you know, they're like, oh yeah, I mean, yeah, you want to watch Ugly Betty? What? Who gives a fuck?
And then finally, this third one says, I cried when I read the articles. I discovered that my heart was no longer complete toward Jehovah. I promised my God that I would no longer be a slave to these serials and asked him to help me to get out of my home on the day of the program. 2 days later, I was invited to attend a Bible study on the very day and time of my serial. I happily accepted, and notice I now feel closer to Jehovah, and my relationship with him is more intimate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 100%. There are old articles about soap operas. Is Jenny Bill? Yes, I mean, I've read them, right? But what I'm saying is that there aren't really speeches or videos about soap operas. So I feel like this is no longer a thing. Like, this is all light already. Like, he was the last one to care or talk about soap operas, and no longer care. Nobody cares about that shit because, you know, I mean, Netflix is the new soap operas, right? Because it's about love and drama and all that stuff. So you can get your soap opera fix from elsewhere. And also, Deborah Sellers had a really good tape. Soap operas was a way to escape the cult for a little while. It's called a survival technique. Yeah, I mean, when you are in a cult, and I feel I did that a lot. I really like getting into fictional worlds, and I feel like I haven't really gotten into that. Like, I used to read a lot of fantasy, especially, and right now I read mostly, like, you know, boring, like, cult books and, you know, articles like that, and that stuff. I don't really read a lot of fantasy anymore, and I think that that's because I use fantasy to kind of escape my reality, because it's a Jehovah's Witness. Whether you realize it or not, your reality is pretty shitty.
Good Jehovah is to discipline us through his word. Yes, she has the proper view.
How long until they have articles about watching YouTube reaction videos? Oh my God, that's that. You know what? You are so on the money. I don't think they will do it exclusively because this current governing body that we have seems completely incapable of adapting their old structures to the new world. Like, Tony Morris should have been adapting this, right? Like, nobody watches soap operas. Far more people watch YouTube reaction videos, right? Why is he not talking against like, I don't know, watching Mr. Beast or something? That's like, if the previous governing body that got like this mad about soap operas were alive today, that's what they would be mad about. But the Jehovah's Witnesses have been very incapable of changing and adapting.
Of discipline. Now, finally, let's look at Hebrews chapter 12. And we appreciate these sincere comments, and the counsel there certainly applies. Any kind of entertainment that has that corrupting influence would be avoided by a true Christian. So here in Hebrews chapter 12, notice verse 11. True, no discipline seems for the present to be joyous, but it is painful. Yet afterward it yields the peaceable fruit of righteousness to those who've been trained by it. So discipline is painful, but the peaceable fruit of righteousness makes it worth it to have a proper view of the discipline and to accept it humbly so we can remain close to our precious Father, Jehovah.
You have to be humble. And by humble, that means that if we tell you you need to do things differently, then you absolutely have to do it. Otherwise, you are not humble. It's just so stupid. Now, we're gonna watch the last three ones, but I wanna ask you something else about Toni Morris. Let me just go. I'm gonna
Today I
play,
thought
and I'm gonna go into the polls because I want to ask you: do you think Toni Morris or governing body members wear Rolexes, or shall we say, like watches that are worth like thousands and thousands of dollars? I want to know your thoughts. Let me play this and do the poll.
we've discussed the need to keep perceiving Jehovah's will, particularly when it comes to making decisions. And what motivated me to choose to discuss that is this first sentence in the comments for today. If we are to please Jehovah, we must hold firmly to his laws and principles, never adopting an unholy, compromising attitude toward them. So it's very obvious when it comes to commands, and Jehovah has direct commands in Scripture. He forbids idolatry, he forbids fornication, he forbids adultery and theft. However, there's many situations where there's no direct command in Scripture. So some might feel that in the absence of a direct law, they're free to do as they please. Well, we're aware of the fact that the devil will be delighted if he succeeds in getting us to break a law of Jehovah God. However, the wise in heart understand this need to firmly hold to and apply Bible principles in their life. It's our experience that those that don't hold firmly to Bible principles ultimately end up breaking a law of God. So it's very crucial. That's why this scripture in Ephesians chapter 5, or these verses here, are really food for thought. Jehovah gives us all we need so that we're not succumbing to the temptation to violate Bible principles when we're making decisions. And
Also, look how young he looks. I feel like he's not slurring his words at all in this speech, which is why I feel like the slurring of his words is definitely related to him getting older and not to him like developing a drinking problem. Also, I just dropped the poll. Please vote. Let me know if you think Toni Morris and other governing body members wear Rolexes.
here in the 5th chapter, familiar words, verse 15, all the way through 17. So keep strict watch that how you walk is not as unwise, but as wise persons, making the best use of your time, because the days are wicked. On this account, stop being unreasonable, but keep perceiving what the will of Jehovah is. Boy, this is so helpful to God's people to just keep perceiving what the will of Jehovah is. So that's going to call on us to apply Bible principles in our lives. This idea of perceiving, some translations say have discernment or try to understand it. Really, perceive is a good translation. It means to attain awareness or understanding. So we need to attain awareness or understanding of Jehovah's will. Take, for example, decisions that we make. We'll do a couple of examples here. How about music choices? Now, obviously, all of the sacred music, our kingdom.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Is he going to talk about, music now? See, Toni Morris was, I feel like, the most outright judgmental Jehovah's Witness. I feel like now they're becoming really coy about shit. And they're like, oh, we wouldn't want to delve into entertainment that Jehovah wouldn't like. But Toni Morris was like, yeah, no, fucking ABBA is from the devil. Like, if you listen to it, you are not passing like paradise. Like, he was very like, he didn't say that, but I'm just exaggerating for comedic effect. But he was happy to delve into far more detail than the current governing body wants to right now. I feel
The music is a good choice, but we're not going to be over righteous and say we can't listen to other music. No, Jehovah's not that way. He's not unreasonable. However, when we make a choice in music that we're going to listen to, can you say, well, I like this kind of music and everything is fine? Not if we're going to consider Ephesians 5:17 when it comes to making decisions where there's no direct command against this particular kind of song or music. We have to take into account Jehovah's thinking and his feelings. Feelings? Well, of course, Jehovah has feelings. They
Oh my God, just the classic. We need to take into account how Jehovah thinks, therefore what the cult would think, and how Jehovah feels. Because if you do good things, Jehovah happy, but if you do bad things, Jehovah sad. It's oh my God, just Jehovah is like I've met like bipolar people and like very like unstable people who were far more stable than the Jehovah from the Jehovah's Witnesses. This is not even a dig against the Abrahamic God. This is just their human interpretation of what God is supposed to be. Like, remember, don't take that as blasphemy. I would be happy to do blasphemy every now and then, but this is not blasphemy. If anything, what he's doing by implying that God is this weak and unstable, that should be the real blasphemy here.
matter. And one that really loves him, it's going to matter how Jehovah is affected by a decision we make. And the wise in heart always apply Bible principles in their lives. They're not going to give their ear and heart to music without considering Jehovah's feelings. Think about a couple of questions we might raise in your choice of music outside of the kingdom music. Can you think about Jehovah as you listen to this song? And can you do so without any pain of conscience? Are the lyrics acceptable for one claiming to love Jehovah and his principles? See, good questions. Something to think about. Need to seek Jehovah's will, perceive it. If it's okay and your conscience is fine, well, go ahead and listen to it. But if you can't answer those questions there affirmatively, well, then it would be wise not to violate the Bible principle.
This is what made me feel guilty for listening to Green Day. It's so stupid. Like nowadays, weirdly enough, I'm just getting into like listening to oldies and stuff. But before, like obviously when I was like a kid, like I wanted to listen to fucking Green Day, but like I was like, oh man, like I don't know, like they have like a heart out and that it maybe has blood or something, and I don't know if Jesus would approve of this, of me listening to Green Day and to Boulevard of Broken Dreams.
Another example, consider our appearance in the ministry. And it's noted that styles of clothing differ from place to place all over the world. And we see that in our JW broadcasts, the different type of dress the brothers have in some parts of the earth, and that's acceptable. But see, we have to think again about Bible principles guiding our decisions. For example, this one here in Second.
Please, what is the Bible principle that he's gonna get? I mean, I already heard Second Corinthians, but what do you guys think is the Bible principle that says what kind of clothes are acceptable? Because remember, Type and Stoney has very he's more opinionated in fashion than me, and that is saying something.
Corinthians chapter 6. And when you think about our appearance as we engage in the ministry, the holy ministry, verse 3 of 2 Corinthians 6. In no way are we giving any cause for stumbling, so that no fault may be found with our ministry. That's very clear. How does Jehovah feel? Well, it's right here.
It's right here. If you make other people stumble because you don't follow the rules that we made up, then it's your fault.
He'd be offended if we had an appearance in the ministry that stumbled, folks. This is our ministry in behalf of Jehovah God. We don't want to ever give a cause for stumbling. So,
yeah, like guys, imagine a Jehovah's Witness like arrives to your door and he's wearing black sneakers. You'd be like, oh my God, I was about to convert to Jehovah's Witnesses, but I saw your New Balance. And I was like, get the hell out of here. That is not how Jehovah's Witnesses, like how Jehovah's people would dress. Obviously, you would be wearing some kind of leather loafers or something. Like, come on.
if our appearance detracts from our representing ourselves as ministers of God, well, then that would stumble anyone that we're preaching to. And we would avoid that. Very clear. So you don't have to get long list of rules. Is there a chance somebody's going to be stumbled by my appearance? Now, I thought that we'd further help.
Also, it's very funny how he's like, yeah, no, we need to make sure that when we're out preaching, we don't stumble other people with our appearance. The people who are going to be stumbled by their appearance is not the people who you preach, is the people who with you preach. Like that, those are the only people who may be stumbled. It's so stupid. The fact that you're preaching or not has nothing to do. It's just how people are going to see your fashion sense.
With this matter of perceiving Jehovah's will when making decisions, and there's no specific command. And it was a beautiful article back in 2003. Do you always need a Bible command? Good question. And under the heading Sharpening Our Perceptive Powers, a question was raised. How can we develop our perceptive powers so as to know how to please Jehovah, even when he's not given specific direction in a matter? And then the good advice was provided to, of course, reminding us to read his word daily, study it regularly, and we can't overemphasize the need to meditate on what we read. And then the observation was made here, we will experience.
This is very funny because he is really saying, hey, when the Bible doesn't say things, that doesn't mean that you are free to do what you want. You still need to figure out what the cult wants you to do and then do that.
Growth in our powers of perception if we do so, but it doesn't take place rapidly. Like the physical growth of a child, spiritual growth is gradual. It is not immediately discerned. And the good counsel here, there's a need for patience. We should not become frustrated if we do not notice immediate improvement. And then it's balanced off with, on the other hand, the mere passing of much time will not of itself sharpen our perceptive powers, just because time went by. Such time must be filled with regular consideration of Jehovah God's word. See, so we learn to live that word.
See, oh, you guys thought that I would miss it, but no. He said, see, that's strict.
To the best of our ability. That's a profound thought. And I thought this was even more profound, and it really reaches into our figurative hearts. Just a marvelous thought in the following paragraph. It might be said that while God's laws test our obedience, his principles test the depth of our spirituality and of our desire to please him. Now that's worth repeating. It might be said that while God's laws test our obedience, his principles test the depth of our spirituality and of our desire to please him. Beautiful. So spiritual persons are governed by Bible principles. That way they're not going to be breaking a Bible law. So let's be determined to please Jehovah, to do our best always to perceive his will. How does he feel about this? And be guided by Bible principles when we make decisions.
I love that he geared up for a C. Also, this one didn't even, oh, there you go. It had, I guess they put the year afterwards. After they did this, they started putting the year, the like in the same card. Anyway, let's see what you guys think. Say, do governing body members wear Rolexes or expensive watches? And you guys thought 27 people voted, even though we have 75 people watching. I don't know how the hell would that happen, but anyway, it's fine. If some people don't want to, like, some people still feel iffy about voting, you know, you wake up at your own pace. It's totally fine, right? But 96% of those people said yes, and only 3% of those people said no. I'm going to tell you my take while I load the next video, which is the second to last video that we watched today. And my take is that they do not wear, oh shoot, I stopped sharing. They do not wear Rolexes, but I feel like that does not mean that they are not rich. We sometimes, like, the Jehovah's Witnesses do this thing where they equate people showing off wealth to people being wealthy, right? You can't wear like a nice purse or a nice watch or whatever, because then people will think that you're wealthy. And since people perceive the governing body members as wealthy, then they believe that they wear Rolexes and all that stuff, even though, you know, like, they just wear like metal watches, and you can't really see the whether or not they say Rolexes. And there's a lot of watches that look a lot like Rolexes, right? So unless you actually see that that's a Rolex, then you don't know whether that's a Rolex or just a replica or a homage or whatever, because those are illegal. You can buy them. Like, you can literally buy Invicta watches right now, and they will, from afar, they will look exactly like Rolexes from afar, right? Unless you can actually see, like, you can see the details, you will not figure out whether or not that's a Rolex, right? However, I have a nuanced take on that. That does not mean that they are not wealthy. Look at what Toni Morris is wearing right now. I believe, like, look at Let's see a
Of
little bit of
course,
light.
our text.
There you go. Look at how beautiful this refracts the light. Do you see this? Do you see it, just how perfect this refracts the light? Like look at like how the lines just diffuse over here, because it's shiny but like not exactly shiny. You can tell that this is a very soft, very high end kind of like natural wool or something, right? The Toni Morris suit collection, and I believe every governing body suit collection, is almost definitely given to them by their religion, and will almost definitely be worth more than a Rolex watch. All right. And not just that, they have access. They fly in first class. They fly all around the world where they stay in like very nice accommodations, and they get adored. They get wash and adoration and all that stuff. Why would they risk it all? Why would they risk uh, stumbling or screwing it up by just wearing a Rolex that Jehovah's Witnesses are not supposed to watch? Why would he wear a Rolex when he is already living the life, a very privileged life that very, very, very few people live? It's like those nouveau rich people that get a ton of money very quickly and then dress like head to toe in Gucci. But then you see like old money folks, like people who have like a billion times more money, and they are just dressed in simple clothes. I feel like that's the same level of difference in Jehovah's Witnesses. You think when you're a Jehovah's Witness, since you don't have money, probably because you're a Jehovah's Witness and that's how the religion works, you think that rich people wear Rolexes, and you can identify rich people by wearing Rolexes. You can't. You can identify rich people, but the amount of power that they have, not just acquisitive power, but just power in general. And that's how we know that Toni Morris and the governing body are rich, like far more rich than if they just had Rolexes. If they didn't have all of that power, if they didn't have all of that access to, fuck up like the lives of people while thriving themselves, and instead only had Rolexes, that would be a better world, in my opinion.
Was discussing looking at a woman so as to have a passion for her. And the first sentence in the text comments make this point: the disastrous path of immorality often.
I think there were Rolexes that they get as gifts from wealthy Jehovah's Witnesses. That could also be the case. I don't know, but I could see that being the case. But even then, I feel like when you are in the Jehovah's Witnesses, your perception, like your image, is everything. So would they risk wearing something that they know would go against their image so blatantly? I think that even if they owned Rolexes and all that stuff, they would not wear it where Jehovah's Witnesses can see that. Like I just don't think that they wear it on JW Broadcasting. Is my point.
Starts with the eyes, and then 2 Peter 2:14 was cited about men having eyes full of adultery. So to begin, I thought we'd look at the disastrous path of Eve that was touched on by one of our commenters. Take your Bible and let's look at what happened here in history.
Genesis, CSA warning. He's saying that Eve was touched by one of their commenters. Like, oh my God, this religion is going. Like, it's a joke, obviously.
3. And obviously, in his superhuman intelligence, Satan knows about the eyes. And so we need to be warned by this this disastrous path of Eve that Satan took her down. Now let's read Genesis chapter 3, starting with verse 1. Now the serpent was the most cautious of all the wild animals of the field that Jehovah God had made. So it said to the woman, did God really say that you must not eat from every tree of the garden? At this, the woman said to the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but God has said about the fruit of the tree that's in the middle of the garden, you must not eat from it. No, you must not touch it, otherwise you will die. At this, the serpent said to the woman, you certainly will not die, for God knows that in the very day you eat from it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and bad. So with these 3 sentences, he altered her perfect mind into a disastrous path. But now he's got her looking at the tree. And what's the consequences? Well, notice verse 6. Consequently, the woman saw that the tree was good for food and that it was something desirable to the eyes, Yes, the tree was pleasing to look at. So she began taking of its fruit and eating it. So,
Man, that tree sounds sexy AF. Like, oh, that's it was you can't even you don't even know it. It looks so delicious. Oh my god, it looks so nice and so yummy, and it was so pleasing to look at.
connected with the eyes, disastrous path. Eve was disloyal. She knew what Jehovah had commanded, but she lacked loyal love for him. What a disaster. But it just cautions us in our imperfect state. If the devil can do that with a perfect individual, we need all the application of Jehovah's counsel that we can put into practice. For example, his counsel here in Ephesians chapter 4, and this is quite interesting. It's connected with the new personality because different brothers and sisters, married or single, deal with different trials. Some things are harder for some than others for all sorts of imperfect reasons, but it doesn't change what Jehovah's counsel is. And all of us, regardless of whatever we have to deal with personally, this applies to us. In verse 24 of Ephesians chapter 4, that we should put on the new personality that was created according to God's will in true righteousness and loyalty. See, there it is, loyalty. Have to be righteous, but it's connected with loyalty. Now, this is one of those examples of the superiority of the New World Translation. Often in the original language, they have this license to translate righteousness and holiness in a lot of other translations. Why do we have loyalty here in the New World Translation? Well, Insight volume on page 280 had the point here on loyalty in volume 2, quoting it in the Greek scriptures, the noun hosiotes and the adjective hosios carried the thought of holiness, righteousness, reverence, being devout, pious. Notice the careful observance of all duties toward God. It involves a right relationship with God. Then it mentions there appear to be no English words that exactly express the full meaning of the Hebrew and Greek words, but loyalty, including as it does the thought of devotion and faithfulness, when used in connection with God in his service, serves to give an approximation. And this point is made: the best way to determine the full meaning of the Bible terms in question is to examine their usage in the Bible.
Caleb, say something. I almost fell asleep. Honestly, it's just this is kind of like a boring speech, but it's building up to him being like, no, you don't understand. Like what the Bible says is be loyal to this cult. You would need to be loyal to this cult forever. That's what this Bible. I mean, I'm hoping that that's where it's going, because Tony Morris and all of the governing body members and every Jehovah's Witness can be really boring.
So beautiful point. So as used regarding the new personality, loyalty captures the thought. See, we must be loyal with the new person.
Jesus Christ, his pocket square looks like a fish head. It totally fucking does. And now I will not be able to concentrate on anything that he's saying anymore.
Personality, loyal to Jehovah God, loyally loving him. Then we stay away from the devil, allowing our eyes to take us down a path of disloyalty. And we can consider the loyalty of Jesus, because Satan did the same thing, a little different attempt, but he was after Jesus' eyes, just like he's after our eyes, trying to affect us. And I just love how Jesus handled this. And of course, we want to imitate him. Matthew chapter 4. Matthew chapter 4. And on into his temptations, we're going to read verse 8 and 9 and 10 of chapter 4. Again, the devil took him along to an unusually high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world in their glory. So he's got his eyes involved here. Let's see, this is the loyal Son of God. So Satan says to him, all these things I will give you if you fall down and do an act of worship to me. And notice the conviction, the loyalty of Jehovah's precious Son. Jesus said to him, go away, Satan, for it is written. It is.
That's a lot of passion. Let's just hear that again. Like, oh my God, you can tell that he channeled his inner Jesus over there.
Satan, precious Son. Jesus said to him, go away, Satan, For it is written, it is Jehovah your God you must worship, and it is to him alone you must render sacred service. Isn't that priceless?
Oh man, thank you so much, Custom Faded, for $49.99. Thank you for that huge donation. Thank you so much. And I love that came exactly after he says, "Go away, Satan." I guess Satan just literally went away and then just came here and donated to this stream. Like, thank you so much.
The conviction, go away, Satan. Say, Jehovah alone. You can feel his loyalty there. And that's what we beg Jehovah to help us to do, whether you're married or single, because that strengthens the marriage, the loyalty, and the new personality. Whatever the devil may try to do when it comes in the way of temptations, maybe by the internet, billboard, whatever, have the habit of saying, go away. We're going to keep our eyes, just like Jesus did, always loyally toward Jehovah.
Man, that was, oh man, exactly. Come on, Satan. Like, apparently that is true. Like, Satan will help you if you join his side. Good thing that Tony Morris sent him. Now, thank you so much for that donation. Like, it really goes a long way. Let's watch the last Tony Morris talk, which should be the earliest talk that they deleted from jw.org. As you can see over here, it used to be. It was released on September 2015. So we're about to see the youngest Tony Morris that we're gonna see in this series, basically. So let's watch this, because let's see. I feel like all of those see and sobering, like all that stuff, I feel like it was just things that he developed over time, because he's using surprisingly few of those. Like, not only is he slurring far less the more we move back in time, but also he's somewhat a better speaker.
This more, I thought we'd connect the fact that obedience to Jehovah always leads to his blessing. And let's take the apostles as an example. Acts chapter 6, it'd be good to read it. It's mentioned in our comments. And one of the commenters connected the fact that they were involved with feeding previously, literal food that Jesus miraculously provided. But there's some things of interest here from the first century, and then we'll bring it up in a moment to the modern day. But let's read verses 1-4 of Acts chapter 6. Now, in those days, when the disciples were increasing, the Greek-speaking Jews began complaining against the Hebrew-speaking Jews because their widows were being overlooked in the daily distribution. So the 12 called the multitude of the disciples together and said, "It is not right for us to leave the word of God to distribute food to tables. So, brothers, select for yourselves 7 reputable men from among you, full of spirit and wisdom, that we may appoint them over this necessary matter. But we will devote ourselves to prayer and to the ministry of the word." So this is what Jehovah wanted them to be focusing on. They should not leave the word of God. They should be devoting themselves to prayer and to the ministry of the word. That was the focus. And they recognized that. And it's apparent as you look through the account in Acts that they were obedient to this, and Jehovah blessed them, because later, go to Acts chapter 16, please. Things progressed, and then they end up with various decisions that had to be made, and the governing body did enlarge beyond the apostles there in the first century, as we know. So after some of these things were discussed at that level, and they had been devoting themselves to the ministry of the word and to prayer, obviously, well, what's the results? Did Jehovah bless them? Well, the decisions were made. Now notice here in verse 4 of Acts 16, as they traveled on through the cities, they would deliver to them, all the congregations, for observance, the decrees that had been decided on by the apostles and the elders who were in Jerusalem. So these decrees went out, and because of their devoting themselves to the ministry of the word and prayer, did Jehovah bless them? Did he bless those that obeyed the decrees? Was obedience leading to Jehovah's blessing for them as well? Well, notice verse 5. Then, indeed, the congregations continued to be made firm in the faith and to increase in number day by day. So obviously Jehovah blessed the obedience that was displayed once these decrees were sent out. Now, let's bring it up to modern day here. And you'll find this quite interesting. I did. I assume you might find it of interest. But here in verse 4, if you look at the original language about decrees,
See, the first third is always the most boring one, because they're like, anyway, they start by reading this cherry picked Bible verse, and most, like, half of the time you don't even know like the application that he's gonna come up with, because it's not like, it's gonna be what the Bible verse says, right? So you have to sit through like the first third for them to actually get to the point that they want to get. That is a Jehovah's Witness quirk that I've only seen with this religion. Like, the first third you could usually skip, and the last bit you could usually skip. The last bit is just to round it up and make it look like a nice spiritual sandwich. But it's over here, like the second and third halves, the second and third thirds, where the garbage, the proper called garbage is.
I noticed that the Greek there, the word dogmata. Well, you can hear the word dogma there. Well, things have changed to what it means in English now. It's certainly not anything we want to say the faithful slave is guilty of.
We don't want to say that the faithful slave is guilty of dogma. What if they are, though? What if they are? Tony? Is this what you got to remove from that? No, definitely not.
Notice here what dictionaries have had to say. If you refer to a belief or a system of beliefs as a
Jesus fucking, like the dictionary definition again.
Dogma, you disapprove of it because people are expected to accept that it is true without questioning it. A dogmatic view obviously is undesirable. And one other dictionary said, if you say someone is dogmatic, you are critical of them because they are convinced that they are right and refuse to consider that other opinions might also be justified. Well, I don't think we would want to apply this to decisions that come out from the faithful slave. In our time now, we have apostates and opposers that would like God's people to think that the faithful slave is dogmatic, and they expect you to accept everything that comes out from headquarters as if it's dogma.
No. They expect you to follow everything that comes from the governing body and from headquarters as if it comes from Jehovah. You just said it in the future, Tony. We literally just heard it. We just, like, see how contradictory the Jehovah's Witness world is. You have to believe that it comes from Jehovah, but you don't have to believe that it's dogma, even though that's the same thing.
Arbitrarily decided. Well, this does not apply, and that's why it's properly translated decrees. And in our day, like Brother Cummers prayed, and often the brothers do, about decisions that will be made, not just by the governing body, but branch committees. This is a theocratic arrangement. Jehovah's blessing.
That's what I'm saying. Like, was he trying to gaslight us? I do believe that this is like advanced gaslighting, because sometimes I use gaslighting and people are like, excuse me, gaslighting is when you tell somebody that they're crazy if they don't believe what you believe. No, that's not gaslighting necessarily. Gaslighting is changing, it's changing the reality and telling the other person that this changed reality is the actual reality, when instead it's just a manipulation technique. Like, Jehovah's Witnesses telling you that they're not dogmatic and that you shouldn't follow things as they are dogmatic, but you should follow them as if they come from Jehovah. Like, it's just I feel it's more like that. Like, it's very advanced, like, because at the end of the day, like, if you don't do that, then it's not like you're crazy. You are crazy. You're mentally diseased. You're an apostate if you don't do that. So I feel like this is gaslighting. Like, exactly, it is institutional gaslighting. Thank you. Like, I feel like this is very advanced gaslighting. It's not just like when your boyfriend is like, "Oh, you're crazy. I didn't hang out. I didn't text this girl," or when that actually happened. That's wrong. But I feel like this is more advanced and more pernicious.
The faithful slave. And you need to keep in mind, we've made this point, but keep your place here in Acts 16. But look again at Matthew 24. And we've made this point in the past on verse 45. When the question was raised, and now it's been answered in our day, Acts 24, verse 45. who really is the faithful and discreet slave, singular, see, whom his master appointed over his domestics to give them their food at the proper time. So this is
Thank you so much, Anna Reyes. I hope you like your newfound freedom, and you enjoy your life now.
obvious that this slave is a composite slave.
Thank you so much, Queen of Flatulence. 5 big ones, even though she's already a member. We're neither inspired nor infallible, but everything we say is definitely from God. Exactly. Like, see, we need to drink because we miss it. But yeah, exactly. Like, it's just the worldview of Jehovah's Witnesses is very contradictory, and this is why you can't be healthy mentally as a Jehovah's Witness, because I mean the people are gaslighting all of the time, and you have to believe in it, because otherwise you can't be part of this religion outright. Like that's one of the conditions for this religion.
The decisions that are made by the faithful slaves today are made collectively. So no one man's making these decisions. These decisions, if you want to call them a decree, are made collectively. So when that direction comes out to branch committee members, or when it comes out to the congregations, if you want Jehovah's blessing on you as an individual or a family, certainly as a elder or a congregation, it'd be best to just ask Jehovah to help you understand it, but obey the decision.
Oh my God. Do you see it? Do you see how outright culty he is? He, like, after the first third, which was very boring, in the last third is where it gets like the most interesting. He's like, hey, if you don't understand why we're asking you to do something, that does not mean that you shouldn't do it. You should pray to understand it and then still do it, like regardless of whether or not you understand it.
See, that's the same thing's going to happen today, happened in the first century. Notice in verse 4 and 5 of Acts 16, asked you to keep your place there. So when circuit overseers visit and they've brought information from the faithful slave, when branch committee members meet to discuss things and go by the guidelines, well, what's the result? According to verse 5, then, see, when these are obeyed, then indeed you're going to be made firm in the faith. Congregations will increase, branch territories will increase day by day. Why? Because as we mentioned in the beginning, Jehovah blesses obedience. This is a theocracy ruled by God, not a collection of man-made decisions. This is governed from heaven.
Come on. I mean, is this not gaslighting? You can see that this is a religion governed by men, but you have to believe that this isn't? Get the fuck out of here. I mean, this is gaslighting. Anyway, there is just one last Tony Morris video that I want to show you guys. The Tony Morris talk on we need an organization. One of my all-time Tony Morris favorite talks, and this is a talk that we are gonna close with. This was released in JW Broadcasting, and this is Tony Morris basically arguing that we need a governing body. And again, I want you to wonder when you're listening to this, since this was removed, how much of this is no longer part of the doctrine? Because no longer is the Jehovah's Witness doctrine very contradictory. It's also changing all of the time. So think about that. Also, think about why in Australia and the fucking outback they have so many like apparently thriving cities, bigger than Melbourne and Perth and all of those cities around in the coast. Like, what are all of these cities? Like, is this where Tony Morris is nowadays?
There are people who believe there is no need for a religious organization. They feel they have their own personal relationship with God, and that is good enough. They see no need to be associated with a specific organization. However, what does God's own inspired word suggest? That he would use an organization or channel.
I love that he's just starting, and he's like, what does the Bible say? No, not says. What does the Bible suggest if you know what to read and you read a few Bible verses out of context?
Through which spiritual food would be dispensed from his word, the Bible. For example, 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 17 says to have love for the whole association of brothers. One dictionary definition for association is an organization of persons having a common interest. We have a very interesting, insightful look at the organization in the first century. If we glance down through chapter 15 of the book of Acts, we can gain some insight.
I mean, look, guys, you can actually see my house from here. I'm right over here right now. I'm right over here.
Verse 1 indicates there was an issue that caused a disagreement between some of the members of the congregation. Then verse 2 says, but after quite a bit of dissension and disputing by Paul and Barnabas with them, it was arranged for Paul, Barnabas, and some of the others to go up to the apostles and elders in Jerusalem regarding this issue. Sounds like
No. Sounds like get the fuck out of here, Tony. Let's just he's about to give you like his interpretation. But what he's reading over here is what happened in the first century with Christianity. In Christianity, there were many different ways to be a Christian. Not only were there different Messiah figures, but there were different interpretations of how to follow the Messiah that these Christians believed in, that Paul believed in, that Barnabas believed in, and all of that stuff. They had questions because Jesus didn't really come to make a religion. Like if you read the Gospels, you can really see that Jesus didn't really come to make a religion. Jesus kind of came to be like, hey, I'm here because God's government is upon us, and I'm gonna come back. Like I'm gonna die, but I'll be right back to govern all over you, right? So when he died, and then he didn't come back like permanently to fix things. Everything. Oh man, is that why they believe that he? Anyway, whatever. When that happened, people were like, "Oh man, how do we make a religion out of this? We have so many different ways. Like, do we have to follow the circumcision, or do we not have to follow the circumcision? Like, what are we gonna do? Like, what should a Christian do in all of these things?" And they try to make a religion out of everything, right? Some people believe that only knowing and accepting Jesus in your heart was enough, like was what Jesus wanted. Well, other people believe that no, you have to follow like everything that he tried to do and try to live your life exactly the way that he tried to live it. And that, there were very like many different interpretations. And this is a reflection of that in the book of Acts. In the book of Acts, it tells you about how there were different Christians who were supposed to be in the same branch of Christianity, who were having dissenting thoughts about what should and shouldn't be rules. Because, well, if you read the full chapter, you realize that it was in Jerusalem where all of that controversy started. So everybody went to Jerusalem to solve the controversy. However, that's why Tony Morris only reads you Acts 15:2, because if you read the whole thing in context, you realize that they went to Jerusalem because that's where the problem was, and that's not what Tony Morris wants you to think. What Tony Morris wants you to think is this
issue. Sounds like an organization to me.
Sounds like an organization to me. They went back because, it was the headquarters. Jerusalem was the headquarters. Sounds like an organization to me. And therefore, it should sound like an organization to you.
And after considerable discussion and with the help of God's Holy Spirit, what transpired? Verses 22 and 23 say, then the apostles and the elders, together with the whole congregation, decided to send chosen men from among them to Antioch. Along with Paul and Barnabas, they sent Judas, who was called Barsabas, and Silas, who were leading men among the brothers. They wrote this and sent it through them.
Now, this was important because when this happened after they were discussing whether or not circumcision should be a thing among Christians, right? So when everything finalizes, they send Judas or Barnabas and Silas who were leading men among the brothers to give credibility to the decision to everybody else, right? That's why they sent it, because it was basically sending one of the people who didn't believe in that, like who caused the whole issue, with everybody else to be like, yeah, no, believe me, I was in the other side, but we decided this other way. Like it was a way to give credibility to the decision that they have came to about this, how they were gonna obey Christianity.
Then in verses 23 through 29 is the letter of direction that was delivered to Antioch and other congregations.
The letter of direction, which is obviously a Jehovah's Witness term, But no. They were using apparently letters of direction, like from way back.
As well. In fact, in verse 41, it says Paul and Silas went through Syria and Cilicia, strengthening the congregations. Chapter 16, verse 5 says, then indeed the congregations continued to be made firm in the faith and to increase in number day by day.
Which you know that it's because they were basically circuit overseers, and that's why they were going around and congregating. They were circuit overseers, which is why we have circuit overseers.
So it was not a matter of isolated Christians sitting at home claiming to have a personal relationship with God. No.
Not with everybody. But it also wasn't about going to meetings twice a week in a kingdom hall. Do you see how like twisted the Jehovah's Witnesses are when it comes to the Bible?
The work was organized and congregations kept being added day by day. That is very similar to what we see in Jehovah's organization today.
I love that. So they were organized like, you know, the way we see organizations over here in this kingdom hall, which did not exist and were not things in the first century Christians, because they gathered in the homes of other people. They never gathered at a specific building or a temple or anything like that. They gathered in homes.
In fact, the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses is patterned after the first century Christian congregation as set forth in the scriptures.
Sure it is. I mean, we just debunked why it's not, but sure it is.
I would like to remind all of Jehovah's Witnesses, whether already baptized or working toward baptism, of this book, Organized to Do Jehovah's Will. It provides an overall view of how the Christian congregation is organized for getting God's work done. The book also offers counsel and direction to help us maintain unity with our brothers worldwide. New ones need to become familiar with the operation of Jehovah's organization and learn how they can have a share in the modern day preaching work. In fact, when a Bible student progresses and desires to join us in the ministry as an unbaptized publisher, the elders direct them to make a study of this book, including the questions for those desiring to get baptized in the appendix.
Exactly like the first century Christians did. You know, that's how they got baptized. That's because Jehovah's Witnesses are modeled after the first century Christians. Like, I mean, don't ask them in which verse they have to answer questions before getting baptized, though.
Even for those of us who have been baptized many years, it may be good to schedule the reading of one chapter of the book each week during our personal study or family worship. It contains general information concerning the duties of elders and ministerial servants, judicial procedures, and various other features of congregation organization. I would like to take a few minutes and review some of the information in Chapter 1 of the publication. Though there are thousands of national and international organizations around the world, they are organized according to human viewpoints and philosophies. But our organization is different. It is theocratic. That means it is ruled by Jehovah as head over all.
That is incorrect. As somebody posted over here. Let me see if because that was a really good comment. But Tony Morris, there we go. Tony Morris redefined theocracy, says Jeffrey Bunting, as government by God. Theocracy does not mean that. It means government by clerics. That is correct. Theocracy means that you're governed by religious leaders, not by God, which is what happens in, like, this is a theocracy. But they don't want you to know what the actual meaning of theocracy is, so they change the meaning, even though they change the meaning to mean something that is not, to apply it and tell you that their religion is something that is not. This religion is a theocracy, but a theocracy is not led by God. A theocracy is led by religious leaders, in which it used to include Tony Morris.
Isaiah chapter 33, verse 22 says, "He is our judge, lawgiver, and king." Many large organizations appoint a chief executive officer or CEO. He is the executive with the chief decision-making authority in a business or corporation. In a similar way, Jehovah has appointed his son Jesus to be the one with chief decision-making authority over the congregation of God.
Jesus is the CEO of JW.org. You heard it here first.
Ephesians chapter 1, verse 22 is speaking of Jehovah's actions in connection with Jesus. It says, "He also subjected all things under his feet and made him head over all things with regard to the congregation." we see the structure of the organization taking shape. Jehovah is the universal sovereign, the king, directing the millions of angels making up his heavenly organization. But when it comes to directing the visible earthly part of God's organization, he has delegated that responsibility to Jesus, the head of the congregation of God. Chapter 2 of the organized book explains this scriptural position of Jesus. And how does Jesus direct the organization here on earth? Matthew 24:45 says that Jesus has appointed a faithful and discreet slave to serve spiritual food at the proper time.
No, it doesn't. It asks, who is the faithful and discreet slave? That's why Tony Morris is not reading it. He's like, anyway, this verse, don't look it up. But this verse says that Jesus appointed us. Don't look it up, though. Don't look it up. Don't look it up. Jesus said it appointed us, and you can see us right here. You can see Stephen Ed over here, and Garrett Losh, and Mark Sanderson, and the bald back of head of Samuel Hurd. You can see me, Tony Morris, right here, and David Splain is coming over here because he's about to talk up to us about the Bible. Where is Jeffrey Jackson? Oh, that was when he was in Australia. Don't ask questions about that either.
Today, 7 anointed men make up the faithful slave, and collectively, they are known as the governing body.
This is a corrupt picture. It is insane to me that this religion is talking a lot about the governing body, like more and more and more every month, apparently. But we still don't have an official photo of the current governing body. I don't know why. We know that they gather every Wednesday. So it would be very, very, very easy to just snap a photo of them. Like, to bring a photographer, and then some lights, and then just get a photo of them. Like, it feels at this point, it feels like they're not doing it on purpose, but I don't know why. Like, why are they doing it? Let me know in the comments if you have a theory as to why we don't have a current photo of the current governing body. And I mean, they don't take photos of the current governing body. Remember, this is an altered photo. There used to be like this other governing body member over here.
And Jesus uses the Holy Spirit to direct these men in harmony with the scriptures. The scriptural basis for this layer of organization is set forth in chapter 3 of the book. Chapter 4 is titled, How the Congregation is Organized and Governed. The organizational structure incorporates branch committees, circuit overseers, elders, and ministerial servants.
Just like in the first century Christians, guys, all of those you can find in the Bible, in Acts or something.
The governing body gives all credit for the success of this organization to Jehovah and the appointed head of the congregation, Jesus Christ. We are just imperfect men trying to follow the lead of Christ in the Holy Spirit. At 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 26, Paul says, "For you see his calling of you, brothers, that there are not many wise in a fleshly way." Verse 27 says, "But God chose the foolish things of the world to put the wise men to shame." Then verse 30 says that Christ Jesus has become to us wisdom from God. That is where the direction and wisdom of the organization comes from, not from mere man.
I mean, it says right here in the Bible that, Jesus is ruling the organization. I mean, not the organization, but that Jesus is ruling. So, that this means JW Broadcasting.
The words of Jehovah to the prophet Zechariah fit today when we see the amazing advances in the organization. Zechariah 4:6 says, "Not by a military force nor by power, but by my spirit, says Jehovah of armies." While there are some well-educated and prominent men who have accepted the truth and are now our fellow brothers, the majority in the organization come from a more humble background.
Just acknowledging, the majority of our followers know that they are not supposed to go to university.
For example, among the first of Jehovah's modern-day servants to introduce the kingdom message to people in Denmark was a shoemaker. In Switzerland and France, it was a gardener. In many parts of Africa, the message was carried by itinerant workers.
Trust me, bro. Like, he's not going to provide sources. He's not going to tell you who those people are. This is just propaganda at its finest and at its laziest.
In Brazil, sailors had a share. Quite a few of the Polish witnesses in northern France were coal miners. Jehovah and Jesus used all of us to get a remarkable work accomplished. We are proud to be a part of this spirit-directed organization. As one older circuit overseer was heard to say, "This is the best imperfect organization on earth."
This has become Jehovah's Witness motto. Jehovah's Witnesses are the are the most perfect imperfect organization on earth, because it's the best scope you can get. Like, it's completely unbiblical, but they quote it far more than the actual Bible.
There are no perfect organizations on earth. However, this is the best of them all. And we appreciate the contribution all of you make to the success of the preaching work worldwide.
So that was the last Tony Morris talk that we're gonna watch today. And yeah, I mean, if it's all made up, and I mean, even Lucifer is right here. I didn't want to disturb him. He's right here, like right over here. He just got up a little bit to sneeze, and then he went back to sleep. So I don't want to bother him, which is why we didn't have a Lucifer break. But those were the Tony Morris deleted videos. We watch all of the deleted videos, and as some people were pointing out, there were some Tony Morris videos that are not deleted from jw.org. We don't know if they're going to be deleted, because they did not delete all of these videos at the same time. They deleted like kind of like gradually. So we still don't know if they will continue deleting Tony Morris videos. But for now, you now have seen what Jehovah's Witnesses cannot see. And I feel it's a good thing that Tony Morris was so outright in his talks, because he really said the quiet power out loud. And it makes me wonder, was Tony Morris kicked out because of this, because the religion was changing? Like, that this religion is not the same religion that it was say 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And Tony Morris really apparently like that version of the religion. So did Tony Morris get the boot because he loved that part of the religion? I don't know, but it's just very interesting. And also, I really like to wonder, like, what part of this is still part of the doctrine? Like, what part of this part of the doctrine? What part of this is just the talk of Tony Morris, who is not even a governing body member? And also, is Tony Morris still anointed? There are so many questions, and it really depresses me that we don't have answers even after like several years, because it makes me feel like maybe apostates, like we're not everywhere as much as we would like to think, because the fact that none of that has been leaked, it kind of just blows my mind. So let me know, what do you guys think? Has Tony Morris been in your congregation? And if it has been in your congregation, and if he's in your congregation right now in North Carolina or wherever he's at right now, please let me know. I would love to interview. I have so many questions for you. But for now, thank you so much for joining. I don't know how to end this stream usually, so I usually just click on